Okay, so how many times have you looked around and thought, ugh, so much stuff. This closet is overflowing, and that stack of papers over there, I'll get to it someday, I swear. It feels like all this stuff is holding me hostage.
Yeah, you're definitely not alone in feeling that way. A lot of people are realizing that more stuff doesn't equal more happiness.
Yeah, it's like my mind can't even relax with all this visual noise. It's exhausting.
Right. And there's actually research that back that up. Studies show that clutter can really increase stress levels, make it harder to focus, and just leave you feeling anxious and overwhelmed.
So basically, it's like our stuff is stressing us out.
Exactly. And that's where minimalism comes in.
Okay, so minimalism. Everything. And living in a white box with like one chair, right?
Well, not exactly. It's more about simplifying. Letting go of the things that aren't really serving you and creating a sense of calm in your space and in your mind.
Okay, that makes more sense. So it's not about deprivation.
Yeah.
It's more about being intentional with your choices.
Exactly. It's about really thinking about what you bring into your life, making sure everything has a purpose and a place.
Well, instead of just like mindlessly buying things, I need to stop and ask myself, do I really need this?
Right? And will it add value to my life, or is it just going to end up cluttering my space and my mind?
So it's like being more mindful, more deliberate about what we surround ourselves with.
I like that. It's about creating a space that feels authentic and aligned with your values.
So this all sounds great in theory, but where do you even begin? It feels so overwhelming to think about decluttering my entire house.
I hear that a lot, and that's why it's so important to start small. You don't have to tackle everything at once.
Okay, so instead of saying I'm going to declutter my entire house, I should pick one small area to start with.
Exactly. Maybe it's a drawer, maybe it's a shelf, or even just a corner of a room. The key is to start somewhere and build momentum from there.
Okay, that feels much more manageable. But what about those things that have sentimental value? I have a hard time letting go of things that hold memories, even if I haven't used them in years.
Sentimentality is a big one for a lot of people. But remember, it's the memories that are valuable, not necessarily the object itself.
But what about things like old photos or letters? I can never throw those away.
You don't have to. Have you thought about digital archiving? Scan those photos and letters. Create a digital archive. That way you can still cherish the memories without the physical clutter.
Okay, so I can keep the memories without keeping all the stuff.
Exactly.
Okay, that's a good tip. What about my inbox? That thing is a black hole. It stresses me out just looking at it.
Digital clutter can be just as overwhelming as physical clutter, and it can really affect your focus and peace of mind.
So is there a way to declutter my digital life too?
Absolutely. A lot of the same principles apply. Unsubscribe from those newsletters you never read. Create folders to organize important emails.
Right.
And maybe schedule a regular digital decluttering session to clear out unnecessary files and apps.
Digital decluttering. I like it. Okay, so I've decluttered my home. I've tackled my inbox. But how do I keep the clutter from coming right back? I'm kind of a shopaholic.
Well, becoming aware of your spending habits is a big part of it. But one strategy that can be helpful is the one in, one out rule.
Okay, so for every new item I bring into my home, I have to get rid of something else.
Exactly. It forces you to be more mindful about your purchases. Ask yourself, do I really need this? Do I have space for it? Will it bring me lasting joy? Or is it just an impulse buy?
I have a feeling I'm going to be getting rid of a lot of stuff.
Well, that's the point. It's about simplifying and creating space for what truly matters.
I'm Carrie.
And I'm Sheri.
And before we go any further, remember, this deep dive is for informational purposes only, and it's not professional advice. But if you simplify your life, hit that like button, subscribe to our channel, and leave a comment below telling us what area of your life feels the most cluttered right now.
We'd love to hear from you.
Okay, so back to decluttering. So far, we've mostly talked about stuff, but I'm realizing that clutter isn't just about physical things. It's also about how we spend our time.
Absolutely. A cluttered schedule can be just as stressful and overwhelming as a cluttered home.
It's like my calendar's a visual representation of my anxiety. It's just packed with commitments and to-dos.
And just like with your possessions, you need to be intentional about how you spend your time. Learn to say no to commitments that don't align with your priorities.
Saying no is definitely a skill I need to work on. I tend to overcommit myself, and then I end up feeling stressed and resentful.
I hear that a lot. It's about setting boundaries and protecting your time and energy.
So how do I do that without feeling like I'm letting people down?
We'll start by identifying your top priorities. What are the things that are most important to you? Your values, your goals.
Okay, so for me, that would be spending time with my family, working on my creative projects, staying healthy, and connecting with friends.
Perfect. So when you're faced with a new commitment, ask yourself, does this align with my top priorities? If not, it might be time to politely decline.
Okay, so I need to start saying no more often.
Yeah.
And prioritize the things that truly matter.
Exactly. And remember, you're not saying no to the person, you're saying no to the commitment.
Okay, that makes me feel a little better. But what about those times when I feel obligated to say yes? Like when a friend asks for a favor, or when my boss asks me to take on an extra project.
Those can be tricky. But remember, you have the right to say no, even if it feels uncomfortable at first. It's about setting boundaries and protecting your time and energy.
So it's about taking care of myself,
Yeah,
even if it means saying no to others.
exactly. Self-care is essential. And it's not selfish. It's about making sure you have the time and energy to show up fully in all areas of your life.
So minimalism isn't just about decluttering my stuff. It's about decluttering my life, my commitments, my time, my mental space.
Exactly. It's a holistic approach to creating a life that feels more aligned and authentic. And when you do that, you naturally create space for the things that bring you joy and fulfillment.
I like that I'm starting to see how all these pieces fit together. Decluttering my home, simplifying my schedule, setting boundaries, saying no to things that don't align with my values. It's all connected.
It is. It's all about creating a life that feels more intentional, more spacious, and more aligned with who you truly are.
This is really making me think about how much I've been holding on to, both physically and mentally. It's like I'm carrying around a backpack full of unnecessary weight.
And imagine how much lighter you'll feel when you let go of that weight.
I can't wait to find out.
Well, you're in the right place because that's exactly what we're going to explore in this deep dive.
We're going to help you declutter your home, your digital life, your schedule, and even your mind.
And we're going to show you how to create space for the things that truly matter to you.
Stay tuned. Okay, so welcome back to our deep dive into minimalism. In part 1, we talked about starting small, tackling one area at a time, and being mindful of our purchases. But what are some common roadblocks that people hit when they're trying to get into minimalism?
I think one of the biggest ones is just feeling totally overwhelmed by how much stuff they have. Like they don't even know where to start.
Yeah, I get that. It's like standing at the bottom of Mount Clutter. Which way do I even go first?
Exactly. And that's why we keep coming back to starting small. Don't try to declutter your whole house in one weekend. Break it down.
Okay, so like instead of saying, I'm going to declutter my whole bedroom today, I could just start with my sock drawer.
Exactly. Just pick one small area. Set a timer, maybe 15 minutes, and see what you can do. You might be surprised by how much you get done.
That does feel less intimidating. But what about the guilt? I know some people feel guilty getting rid of things, especially if it was a gift.
Yeah, gifts can be tough. But it's important to remember that the real gift was the thought, not the thing itself. If you're only holding on to something out of obligation, it's okay to let it go.
But what if they ask about it later? Do I have to, confess that I donated it?
You don't have to tell them all the details. You can just say something like, I really appreciate your gift. I enjoyed it, but I'm trying to create more space, so I'm letting go of some things.
Okay, that's a good way to put it. So what about getting rid of things responsibly? I know some people don't want to just toss stuff in the trash.
There are so many better options than landfills. You can donate stuff to charities or sell things online, consignment shops, or even give things away to friends.
So it's about finding new homes for things where they'll be used and appreciated.
Right. And what about things that are broken or just worn out? Do those just go in the trash?
Yeah, what about that?
Well, there's recycling and upcycling. A lot of towns have recycling centers, and you can also get creative repurpose old items.
So give things a second life instead of throwing them away.
Yeah, exactly. And it can be a really fun way to get into being more sustainable.
Okay, so speaking of sustainability, we briefly mentioned this in part 1, but I wanted to come back to it. How is minimalism connected to being more eco-conscious?
Well, when you consume less, you automatically have less of an impact. And minimalists tend to be more mindful about what they buy, too. Choosing things that will last longer instead of cheap things that break quickly.
So it's about quality over quantity, right? Both for the things we buy and for taking care of the planet.
Exactly. And it's about changing how we think. Instead of just buying mindlessly, we make choices that help us and help the planet.
I really like that. But let's be real. It's hard to escape our consumer culture, right? Everywhere you look, there are ads telling you to buy more stuff, keep up with the latest trends. How do you not get sucked in?
It is tough. But the first step is just being aware of those messages and how they're trying to get you to think. Pay attention to the ads you see or the social media posts that make you feel like you need something.
So it's about looking at those messages with a critical eye.
Right, because once you realize that it's all just marketing, they're just trying to get you to spend money, it's easier to resist.
Makes sense. So it's about being in control, making choices based on what's important to you, not what someone is trying to sell you.
Exactly. And minimalism can really help you figure out what's truly important to you.
How so?
Well, when you declutter, you create space to think about what really matters. What are your priorities, your values? And once you're clear on those things, it's easier to make choices that actually support them, whether that's spending more time with family, following a creative passion, or something else entirely.
So minimalism is about more than just stuff. It's about aligning your whole life with what's important to you.
Right. It's about living a life that feels authentic and fulfilling.
Okay, so this is all so inspiring. But how do you stay on track? How do you stop the clutter from coming back? I know I've definitely decluttered before, only to end up back where I started a few months later.
Yeah, that happens to a lot of people. But that's why changing your mindset is so important. Once you've seen the benefits of minimalism, less stress, more clarity, that sense of freedom, it makes it easier to make choices that support that lifestyle.
So it's like the positive changes you experience help you keep going.
Exactly. And it's important to remember minimalism isn't about being perfect. It's about making progress. There will be times when you slip up. Maybe you make an impulse buy, or life gets busy and the clutter creeps back in.
Oh, thank goodness. So it's okay if it's not perfect all the time.
Of course not. And when you do slip up, just gently remind yourself why you're doing this. What are the benefits you're working toward?
So have compassion for yourself. It's a journey, not a destination.
I like that. A journey. And speaking of journeys, I think it's time we start talking about the most exciting part of minimalism. The freedom it gives you to go after your passions and create the life you really want.
Okay, let's talk about that. Because
Yeah.
I think a lot of people are looking for that, a life that feels meaningful and fulfilling.
So we've talked about decluttering our homes and digital spaces, even our schedules. But what happens when we create that space? What shows up when we let go of things that aren't doing anything for us?
It's like we're clearing out the attic, and then bam, we find a treasure chest full of possibilities.
Yeah,
But I think a lot of people get stuck on the decluttering part and never even make it to the treasure chest.
that's so true. It's easy to focus on the how-to of it and lose track of the bigger picture, Why are we even doing this? What do we want to get out of it?
So it's not just about a clean house or an empty inbox. It's about creating a life that feels right. A life that matches what we care about and what we want to do.
Exactly. It's about making space for what really matters to us. Spending time with people we love. Maybe trying a creative hobby, traveling, or just having more time to enjoy life's simple pleasures.
Okay, I see the connection now. Minimalism isn't about getting rid of everything. It's about having more room for what makes us happy and what gives us a sense of purpose.
I like that. It's about creating a life that's truly your own, not what other people think it should be.
So let's get down to brass tacks. How do we make this happen? How do we turn this new space into something real? Let's say someone's decluttered their house, their computer, and their calendar. What's next?
That's when the fun begins. Once you've cleared out the clutter, you can start to explore, try new things, spend your time and energy on stuff that lines up with your values.
So minimalism is like the blank canvas. And now we can start painting our masterpiece.
I love that analogy. It's about using that blank canvas to make something beautiful and meaningful, something that shows who you are.
This is really inspiring, but it's important to be realistic. This isn't always easy. What would you say to someone who's feeling stuck or overwhelmed?
First of all, be kind to yourself. Minimalism is a journey. It's not about doing everything perfectly. It's about progress, not perfection.
So it's okay to mess up, or buy something you don't need, or have a day when my inbox is a disaster.
Of course. We're all human. We're all figuring it out as we go. The important thing is to remember your intention. Why did you start this in the first place?
So be patient with yourself. It's a process. It takes time.
Exactly. And don't forget to celebrate the small wins. Every time you declutter something, every time you say no to something you don't want to do, every digital distraction you avoid, that's a step in the right direction.
We're almost out of time for today's deep dive. But before we go, can you sum up minimalism in just one sentence? What's the core idea?
Minimalism is about living with intention, choosing what truly matters, and letting go of everything else.
Wow, that's perfect. Living intentionally, choosing what truly matters, and letting go of the rest. I think that's a great motto for anyone who wants to simplify their life.
It's about creating a life that reflects your own values, not the pressures of society or what advertisers tell you to buy.
And it's a journey that can lead to more freedom, more clarity, and a deeper sense of purpose. We've looked at the benefits, we've busted some myths, and we've even learned some practical tips for decluttering our homes, our digital lives, and our schedules. But as we wrap up this deep dive into minimalism, I want to leave our listeners with something to think about, something to consider as they continue on their path to simpler living.
What if you could free up just 10 hours a week by decluttering your schedule, your digital habits, and your physical space? What would you do with that extra time?
That's a great question. What would you do with 10 extra hours a week?
Travel.
Learn a new skill, spend more time with loved ones. There are so many possibilities, and the great thing about minimalism is that it opens up those possibilities.
It gives you the power to create a life that feels full and satisfying, both on the inside and the outside.
So to everyone listening, we want you to take that question with you and let it inspire you. What would you do with an extra 10 hours each week? And how can minimalism help you make that happen? We'd love to hear your thoughts. Share your ideas, your experiences, even your decluttering struggles in the comments.
And remember, this is a journey, not a destination. Be kind to yourself. Celebrate each step you take toward a simpler, more intentional way of living.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into minimalism and decluttering. We hope you got something out of it. Until next time, keep it simple and keep it mindful. And hey, if you really appreciate our work and want to help us keep creating awesome content, you can find us on Patreon. That's patreon.com/McAllister. Or if you just want to buy us a coffee, head over to buymecoffee.com/Jamie McAllister. All content, copyright Jamie McAllister.